Hey all, once again, welcome back to the layout. Today we've got an update for you. We're going to take a look at what's new on the layout. We've got some scenery updates, some updates to the locomotive roster, and some overall projects in general that I'm just really excited to share with you guys. So for the next few minutes, enjoy. Let's go ahead and get started. So for everyone who's new, I thought I'd give you a quick little walk around tour to show you what's new, what's going on, and how the layout's been designed and set up. And after that, we'll take a closer look at some of the projects, some of the new scenes and scenery we've got done over the past year, and a couple other new updates in general to the layout. One quick note, something we really want to add and hopefully can get going soon here is some skirting. It'll go down underneath the lower level, and that'll really clean up the layout. I think give it a lot better look. So that's coming soon. Hopefully that's pretty high on the to-do list. We'll get done sometime this summer or fall, hopefully. But we loosely modeled the Norfolk Southern S line, which is based in western North Carolina. So a lot of the scenes and town names that you'll see here on the layout are modeled after that line and things that we saw growing up. And so even though it's not an exact replica of the prototype in real life, it is loosely modeled after it, and a lot of scenes really draw their inspiration from it. Same with the town names. We'll go ahead and start down here at Murphy Junction. This is a control point just west of Asheville. And since I filmed this video, my dad's actually sent these pictures of this scene, which is just about finished. We tag team a lot of these projects, and since I've been gone, it's been a lot of fun to see the updates myself, and just thought I'd pass them along real quick. With the exception of a few details to the foreground, some lights in the buildings, and super trees in the background, the scene's just about finished. So we'll keep you updated on that as we continue to make progress. We'll go ahead and head up to the upper level and take a look at a couple new locomotives and roster updates. We picked up a new Overland locomotive and weathered it, put in some custom sounds and lights, and really kind of tuned it up so it runs well with the rest of the locomotives and is now kind of up to par with the new scale trains and Athearn locomotives that run really well. But always loved these engines, saw them growing up, and you can see there's the custom air compressor going on. You see that in a couple of their videos. Here's some older locomotives that maybe got a couple years ago, but I don't really think I've showed too much of them. A couple of UP locomotives, and something really fun about this one. This is an Overland as well, and because it's such a long locomotive and it doesn't have any weight on the inside, I was actually able to open up the door and put a 3D printed prime mover inside. So it's something that you'd see in real life, and it's almost impossible to replicate, except from the Overland locomotives and these long AC 6000 car bodies that have extra room. And if you look closely in there, that shine you see just to the right of the door is actually the brass flywheel for the motor. So it really is just squeezed in there, but somehow works, and there's a neat look on this locomotive. Coming along over here, we'll kind of come down to the lower level. This is the west end of Asheville Yard. This is the control point of Biltmore. You can see we have some custom signals here and a little placard for how we have this control point laid out. But one new scene here is actually based on having to get a whole new door. We rebuilt the whole door, and long story short, we had some water issues in the house after a water leak broke upstairs and had to redo a bunch of drywall, and anyways, the door warped, so it would barely shut. So we ended up building a brand new door. As you can see, this slides out real easy. Now it has a whole handle. The whole thing slides out. And we actually decided we'd go ahead and add a little backdrop and a scene which comes down so you can get your hand over it and get to the pin. But if you haven't seen this door before, it swings on a nice piano hinge here. It's all built out of oak, I believe, and some cedar, so it's really strong. My dad built this, and it's just beautiful woodworking and craftsmanship, so it really did a nice job on that. And then we have some trip pins here, so when it closes, hits those pins and will turn on the power, but when the door's open, those pins are open. It cuts the power from here all the way to the switches over there, so you don't have to worry about an engine going off the end of the table when the door's open. As far as the scenery on here goes, we added the backdrop, and we thought it'd be fun to add an old abandoned spur, so we cut a couple buildings in half. My dad put a beautiful road in here. He's really doing a nice job, and you can see where that old spur was going to go, and it's going to be a neat looking scene. We'll have some cantilever signals for the railroad crossing here, and so it'll be a neat looking scene once that's done, and give you some neat views too once this is all finished up. So something that we didn't have before is a pretty bare bones door, just grass and nothing on it. So a really neat little addition here that I think will add a lot of just a lot to the scene. So moving on over here, not too much is new at Asheville Yard. Still have these signals. On the to-do list is to update these signals. As you can see, this is a really nice brass base, but the signal heads themselves, I think they could use a little work. This one's actually broken, and I don't even know how it's still working, but somehow the wires are holding it up. I'm gonna go ahead and put some new Details West signals on there. As you can see, these look okay, but when you compare them to some of the new Details West signal heads, these just look a lot better, a lot more realistic. So I'm gonna save the base for the other side of the control point and update the signals over there just to make them look a little better. There's a couple of coal trains sitting here in the yard. This is one of the main commodities that we run on the layout here. It's coal. We have live coal loads with a coal mine that loads coal cars and a power plant up top that empties them. So you can check that out in some of my previous videos. A couple new locomotives over here. We have a new SD70 standard cab. But one of the newest and by far my favorite addition since the last layout update, something we actually just finished. This is a brand new signal. If you recall, we had a cantilever signal go over the two main tracks and then a separate signal here. You can still see the base of it right there coming out of the yard, and we ended up building a brand new huge cantilever signal for all three tracks and adding more signal heads that are really accurate for Norfolk Southern and also for how this track is laid out. It's not just a generic B-line A signal. So now it's accurate, and it's also incredibly detailed. A good friend of mine, Kennedy Parnell, completely scratch built this. He's been doing incredible work on his layout and was very generous to kind of help me out with this. And I just want to show you some of the detail on here. What's neat about this signal is every cross brace, every piece of it was completely scratch built out of styrene. The heads are 3D printed. You can see some of the details on there. And they actually match the Norfolk Southern signal heads. If you come look over here, you'll notice that it's a small detail, but I think when you start changing these small details, it really adds a lot of realism. But you can see these are some smaller, skinnier signal heads. That's like what you'd see on CSX, and they certainly look good. But for Norfolk Southern, they always had these really unique looking wide signal heads. So something like this just really brings a lot of realism and detail to this scene, and also specifically to Norfolk Southern layout. So really awesome signal bridge here. You can see the etched walkway, and you can still see through it. All the wires are totally hid within the tubing, and really just a great, beautiful model here of a signal bridge that has been custom designed based on this track layout and arrangement. We have the yard lead joining the two main lines with the crossover. Also over here you have the S line, which branches off, goes up the hill, and that's what comes onto the peninsula and works its way up eventually to the paper mill up here and power plant. A couple other details to this scene. We have a small propane tank which will eventually be used for switch heaters. Some new signal relay cabinets here with the accurate signs, and then a PTC antenna array. If you recall, some of the locomotives have these PTC antennas, and that stands for positive train control. It helps the train crews, basically just gives them an extra measure of safety. And so they install the antennas along the tracks, and then the antennas on the locomotives as well. And this is also a scratch-built antenna here by Kennedy. So we really just shout out to him, big thank you to him for really helping me upgrade this scene and give it a neat look. So all these are completely controlled with CATs. It's a system that piggybacks off a JMRI. It's a computer system here that runs on PC, and you can see if we throw the switch, it'll actually throw the switch out on the layout. And we can line a signal here by just clicking on the signal. We come over here, we can see that we now have a diverging approach signal, which means you're going to switch tracks here. Just like the computer screen indicated, we are switching tracks. And we'll have a stop signal up here at the next signal. So it all is point and click, and it generates the correct signal indication. So something that's really neat there. and just a neat addition to this scene. So hopefully be upgrading a couple more signals around the layout, getting a few more up to speed, but that's kind of an ongoing project as well, updating signals around the layout. A couple new locomotives. Finally been able to get a P42 for some passenger service. A couple Utah belt locomotives, which I painted. It was a layout by Eric Bruman back in the day that really inspired my dad and I to build our layout, and always thought it was a cool looking paint scheme. And so I actually did 3 of them for an export coal train and added sound. These are Scale Trains locomotives, which I picked up from Lombard Hobbies and was able to totally strip them down. They were KCS when I got them, and ended up repainting them, adding a couple details specific to that freelance railroad. So it's not a real prototype railroad, it's a fictional one, but something that is in a lot of magazines. But it was always fun for us to read and learn about growing up, and really inspired a lot of the stuff that you see here. So for sure fun to do that, and I'll have a couple videos on operations with these things coming up, hopefully on several different layouts. And while we're on the topic of locomotive updates and projects, I thought I'd share just a quick answer to a question I get. That's where we get a lot of our locomotives and also rolling stock and scenery supplies for the layout. And that's Lombard Hobbies. I used to live in Chicago, and you've probably heard me mention them before. The owners of the hobby shop are good friends of mine, Jeff and Andrew, and they've done great work. And I just thought I'd share a unique aspect of the hobby shop that I don't think others have and really sets them apart, and that's pre-ordering locomotives. With how manufacturers are set up these days, a lot of times you have to pre-order items to even get them. So I just thought I'd show you how easy it is, because to me it's a really neat process that's different. You don't have to put any money down, you don't have to put a credit card in. You simply fill out this form, send it to them, you'll get a response, and as soon as the locomotive comes in, whether it's a month or 6 months or a year down the road, then you can go ahead and set up the payment. So I just think it's a neat, no-frills way to pre-order an engine. So here I'm filling out this form. I've gone to their pre-orders page on their website. You can see I put the part number in, which I pulled off the Athearn website, set up how I want to be notified that the engine has arrived, and how I want to receive the invoice. And sure enough, once the engine ships from the manufacturer and the hobby shop gets it, within a few days, it'll show up at my front door. And I think it's just a great way to have a pre-ordering system. I'm always hesitant to put my credit card in there when I shop at other places. So to me, this is a huge selling point for Lombard Hobbies for me. And for that, along with a lot of other reasons, is one of the reasons that Jeff and Andrew have become my go-to guys, and Lombard Hobbies has become my go-to shop for picking up new locomotives and supplies for the layout. So just a quick shout out to them. It's something that I think was unique and worth the time for me to share with you guys, because it's such a neat feature, and I think they've taken a lot of feedback from modelers and applied that to their hobby shop. So thank you to them, and hopefully you guys can give it a quick look, and I'll post a link to that in the description below. Anyways, guys, that's about all that's new. Hopefully have a little bit more for you coming in 6 months or so. We got a lot of projects on the table. We'd love to get some water in here. We have a lot more trees. We have 2-3 huge boxes of super trees that we got to build, and so it seems to really be coming together. We've got a lot of the hard work done. It's just kind of finishing up these details and small scenes. So more to come. As always, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. And if not, I'll see you next time. Thanks.